Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, June 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. All selectmen are present, including the newly re-elected Ms. Braccio and the newly elected Ms. Malinowski. Welcome, both of you. Congratulations to both of you and your recent wins. I look forward to a successful year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I get to our first agenda item, I want to note the news story that we all awoke to early this morning and that played out overnight last evening at our public safety complex. As noted, this matter is under investigation and I don't have any information to share beyond the press releases that have been issued. But I would like to echo the sentiment that Chief Paulus offered this morning and commend the officers involved in the incident, the rescue personnel that assisted the injured officer, and also the Westboro Police Department for their support. While an emotional and traumatic experience for those that witnessed and were involved in the incident, the reality is this could have had a much worse ending in so many ways. And for that, I'm grateful. I've let Chief Paulus know that he and his department have my support in this matter. I trust that of the full board as well. And we offer our best wishes to Sergeant DeLuca and his recovery. So I just wanted to make note of that story that we all woke to this morning. So, first item on our agenda, reorganization of the board. So with the newly constituted board, I think it's appropriate for us to select a new chair. And I'm just curious if there are members who are interested in being chair for this upcoming year, or if there are members that would like to nominate others for the role of chair for the board.
I've got a comment, I guess. I may.
Go ahead, Sam.
I think, I'm not particularly interested in being chair. So, but second, I think historically, there is some precedent for the vice chair becoming chair. And there's also a precedent for different structures out there. I have great respect for our vice chairman. I guess my personal choice is, I think, given the times, Lisa would be my choice for chair. I don't know if she's interested in taking that on or not, but I think, again, given her experience in the chair's role and her connection with the community, I think this is a great time to reinforce that we are eager for community input and have great focus on soliciting opinions from the public, particularly from folks who feel like they've not been listened to historically. And I think she's a great person to do that. So that's my personal preference. And I guess my thought is that regardless of tradition in terms of ways this has been done, I think that it's incumbent on us to pick the best person for the job for the particular time, regardless of who has been, hasn't been, is or isn't interested, et cetera, et cetera. So she's my personal choice. I don't know how others feel about that. I don't know if Lisa is willing to throw her hat in the ring on that one, but I defer to her on that one. So,
If I may, Brian?
Yep, go ahead, Lisa.
So Sam, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your vote of support. I just think for me, for this year, we've started a process, and I would like to follow through on that process. I will say that I do have an interest in continuing to serve the town as chair, potentially down the road. So I think I could still be of real service to the taxpayers and, to the board in a maybe a secondary role. But thank you. I greatly appreciate your kind words and your support of me, Sam.
My pleasure.
So if he would accept my nomination, I would nominate Mr. Healy to serve as chair for the upcoming year. I think, Marty, I think you do an absolutely tremendous job at it, and hope that you would be receptive to that, and hope that you would be open to taking on the position for this upcoming year.
I'd second that nomination, although I got a question for Mr. Healy, so if you would like to accept that.
The quick answer, Brian, is thank you, and thank you, Sam, and I would be happy to do it if at least 3 of the people feel that that's appropriate. But what's your question, Sam? Maybe this will change my answer.
You should have asked that before you accepted.
Yeah.
I still have the mute button control, Sam. Be careful here what you say. Go ahead.
The omnipotent mute button. I guess, Marty, I'm actually interested in any thoughts you might have about what you would like to accomplish as chair over the next year. I think there are a lot of possibilities out there that are important for us to address, and I'd be interested in your at least high-level thoughts on what you think we might be able to target in terms of initiatives, follow through, et cetera, issues that we should be dealing with, and so forth. If you have any thoughts you could share on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I guess short term is emerging from this whole COVID thing with, as you know, we've got a solid foundation going into it. I think Brian has been an incredible steward as chair of the Board of Selectmen to get us from the end of February until now. Having sat in on a couple of agenda setting meetings with him and Mark, it is sort of remarkable to me the amount of additional work that the chair is responsible for. Obviously, the second thing that is going on in the country right now, it's both, I guess, a short, medium, and long-term issue, is to make sure that as members of the Board of Selectmen, as representatives of the town of Southborough, that we make sure we're doing everything to support the inclusivity that there's obviously a strong yearning for. I was touched by the I watched a video of the vigil last week. I wasn't able to be there, and the sentiments expressed there. So I think that's not a 1-year project, but it's certainly a project over the next year. In some process things, I think we've done a lot the year I've been on and the year you've been on, in terms of making sure that the Board of Selectmen is as accessible and open and listening generally on all sorts of issues. And I have some thoughts about, in fact, maybe I'll even bring one of them up later on tonight, in terms of doing even more to enhance, public participation in our processes and processes generally. And this is related to COVID, but not really. It's a longer term thing, and that is, Southborough is an interesting place. I remember when my wife and I decided to live here, we were kind of taken aback by what a unique location it had, with the intersection of 3 major routes, and somehow had maintained this incredible, rural, quiet atmosphere. And on the one hand, that's incredibly important. The other thing that's important, though, is to the stuff that's going on generally in terms of our villages in terms of downtown. One of my favorite things to talk about is the Main Street project. I think that's a nice springboard for some incredibly positive things that can be done for the town. So I guess I didn't expect the question, but that's kind of off the top of my head. Those are the sort of things, the ideas that kind of percolate in my head, right now. And I suspect there's lots of other stuff in there, given a few more minutes to think about it.
Thanks. That's very helpful. Appreciate that. And again, I share your interest in those issues. I think the challenge for all of us is to how to make some of those things that seem like major problems, issues, opportunities, translate into things we can actually do short term. I attended the vigil recently as well, and I was trying to think of how we translate some of those ideas into things that can make a difference in Southborough. And I'm having a hard time coming up with specific things, but I think we need to keep those kind of things in mind and work on that consistently over the next years here. So it'd be great if we can find some ways to make those things happen near term. Thank you.
So there's a motion made and seconded for Mr. Healy as chair. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of Mr. Healy as chair, Ms. Braccio.
Aye.
Now I gotta go through the whole alphabetical thing. Where does Malinowski? Mr. Healy.
I will abstain from the vote.
Okay. Ms. Malinowski.
Aye.
Mr. Stivers.
Aye.
Mr. Shea is aye as well. Marty, congratulations.
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 I can recall the days when there was a great contest among the selectmen to see who didn't have to be chair. Years ago, when I first moved to town, I watched some of those dances where people were, well, I'm willing to do it one more year, but never again. Maybe we'll get there, who knows?
We'll see. How long is the term?
12 years, I think. You should have asked that before you started the nomination.
I know, lots of questions I should have asked first, but anyway, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
All right, so I have to do something now, right?
That's
You're,
right.
you're driving the bus now, man.
Did you remember to bring your agenda with you?
So I will make a motion that Ms. Braccio be vice chair.
Second.
Hopefully, Ms. Braccio, that is acceptable.
Yes,
You?
thank you.
Okay.
Oh, geez, that's right. see how quickly they forget? All right, there's a motion that's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, the only discussion I will stick in is I think that Lisa does a fabulous job in pretty much any task that she undertakes. So I am incredibly supportive of her being the vice chair. So now I have to go in alphabetical order. Ms. Braccio,
Abstain.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy is aye. Lisa, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I guess now we are shifting gears to our substantive agenda. And Ms. Galligan on cue has popped up. Item 3A, and it'll be sub A and sub B, Karen Galligan, DPW Superintendent. And Karen, the way the agenda plays out is the first thing that we've got for you to talk about is FY 2021 transfer station rules and regulations. Is that what you want to talk about first?
Sure. That's an easy one. Well,
Okay.
depends. It's an easy one.
Okay, the floor is yours.
So I think it got a little confusing the way we used to have these when I put them together this year, we put them into a Word document. It had been in a Excel document. So the track changes are actually like a whole different document, a little wonky. So if you just look at the one that says draft, that's the clean copy of what I wanted, we wanted to get voted. That's the clean copy of the rules and regs. There's not a lot of changes. It's more formatting and moving things to try to make it a little, I guess, easier to read. The Public Works Planning Board they voted to not change the rates. It just doesn't seem like a good year for that. Anyway, we are still talking. I think the town was still talking about maybe putting it back into the tax rate. So for now, obviously we can't do that this year. We'll just sell them at the $250 that it was last year. Same thing. The second and any subsequent ones actually were free. Seniors are still free. Nothing has really changed on them. The one thing I was looking to do, and I forgot to ask Public Works Planning Board, you guys can decide to or not. It really is sort of an irrelevant thing, but when you get a second permit, like if you don't return your permit, like if your car broke down or whatever, you buy a new car, you don't return it, we charge $10. There's really no reason for that. It just was something because people seem to be switching them around a lot at one point. And honestly, it's just, we don't have cash down there. It's more of a, people kind of get mad about it. Seniors, like, we didn't have to pay for it the first time. Why are we paying for it now? So we were looking to get rid of it. If the board wants to, that's great. If they don't want to, because the Public Works Planning Board hadn't voted on it, that's fine. We just leave it in. It's not a significant income maker or anything, obviously. So it shouldn't be a big problem. I do know that Mrs. Malinowski was looking at, we didn't put our phone number under the obtaining transfer station stickers permits section. If you have questions, call. So we probably would want to add that as long as everybody wants that. Otherwise, I don't really have anything significant on here.
Marty, can I make a comment?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm a member of the Public Works Planning Board also. We discussed it. I guess I was holding out for including the $10 replacement fee. Those stickers actually do cost us some money physically to do. And it seems to me that at least recovering our cost for those, plus keeping a incentive for people to be a little more careful with the stickers maybe is not a bad idea. I think I would have been outvoted on that by the Public Works Planning Board, but at least that was my view, that we ought to keep it as it was last year.
How many were there last year, Karen? How many situations like that?
I actually, it's the database we had was kind of hard to find it. We were at maybe about 30 that we actually collected on, put it that way. There were some that we didn't have change and we had to make the people walk away.
Okay. Sam, while you've got the floor, anything else on the proposed rules and regs?
Nope. Again, I think sort of steady as you go is not a bad idea for this time. I think there are some other things that we need to think about longer term in terms of a policy for how we deal with the tax base versus sticker fee thing. I'd observe, some of you are aware that advisory committee, the capital planning committee is working with John Butler to take an overall look. Karen has been working with John to take a sort of high level view of transfer station operation in terms of what makes sense longer term. So I think that's going to shed some interesting light in terms of data for a decision going forward for next year. So I think more to come on that. And again, it seems to me that same as last year is not a bad decision at this point.
Marty, if I
All
may.
right. Yep. Sure. Lisa, go ahead.
So I'm going to play Dan tonight, and I'm going to agree with Mr. Stivers.
Oh, no.
Um,
Spoiled
and also, there was just one comment I had on page 3 where it shows what the fine is of the $250. There used to be a box around that, so it was clearly visible what it is. The way it is listed on the draft that I have, it's very nondescript. And
Okay.
if we could just somehow stand that out so people know that there is a $250 fine. Again, because it was that on a prior copy. I just would hate for somebody to dispute the fine and, well, I didn't see it and it wasn't big enough. And yeah, so in fairness.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Okay, that's it for me, Mr. Haley. Thank you.
Mr. Healy, I have a few comments.
Yeah, go ahead, Chelsea.
So Karen, right above where Lisa was just pointing out, participate, it's missing the I.
Oh,
And sorry, I didn't catch that last week. And I just wanted to talk about the cost for the 3,400 related to mailings for this information. Can you walk through what the 3,400 includes?
Yeah, so we buy the stickers, and then sorry, that's actually in the sticker fee, different. So we basically buy somebody to do all that printing and mailing. They stuff the envelope, they print everything, and then our postage is in there, which is about $1,500 for the postage. So that's what that 3,400 is. It's that mailing that goes out so that everyone remembers to get the transfer station stickers on July 1 or after July 1, but before September 15th.
So is there any regulation that requires that we send all that information out? And it,
No,
and it goes
not-
to every resident right now?
Correct. And no, there's
So-
no there's no regulation that says we have to do that.
So I would like to look at another option rather than spending that money on sending this information out, like maybe a postcard that says for the transfer station information, please go to this website and look at it. I just think with the financial situation that we find ourselves in, it makes sense to look at reducing costs where we can. I don't know if anybody else has any
We
other
can do that.
thoughts.
Well, can I ask a question? So Karen, is this typically goes out in its own mailing? That's bad of me,
Yes.
because that tells you that I don't open it. So
I don't
again,
think a lot of people do, right? Yep.
to Chelsea's point, so is there a reason that we couldn't do a postcard, as Chelsea said, or even include it with the tax bills? I mean, we're already paying for postage. And I get the cost. We're still having a cost associated with it. And I understand exactly where you're going, Chelsea. Do you have any suggestions based on that, Karen, as to what might, off the top of your head? You're not on the spot.
It would not, that we could do a postcard. I don't see that as being a problem. I think one of the things is that the seniors have there's like a mail-in form, and we try to encourage them. And this year, I think especially because the way our place is set up, you can really only have one person at a counter at a time because we don't have a way to keep 6 feet. So people are going to be outside buying through a window. And then some people, one person at a time, can come inside. So I think we're gonna encourage people to mail in, and seniors, I mean, at least there's no fee, so they don't end up paying the credit card fee or anything. But they are the ones who will call us and say, hey, I never got a mailing. I didn't know I was supposed to get a sticker. Or, where's my mailing? I need the piece of paper. But if we do print some, put them at the senior center, I do think people are going to be able to visit there, I think, soon, right? We're in that phase 2 now. So maybe we can. But either way, we can definitely send postcard that says, go to the website, go to the senior center, or you can pick them up at easy enough to do. That we can do. And I don't know, the postage would be a little bit cheaper, or like you said, we can slide it into the tax and water bill that goes out this quarter.
How many do we send? Like 3,500 or so, roughly?
Yes.
How much would it cost to send a postcard? Probably 50 cents.
It's about 1,500 is the cost for the mailing. So it would probably be half that, because I think the postcard is so much cheaper. So it's probably, maybe in the order of $800.
Karen, is it, if the at least one of the issues is the senior population, I mean, is it possible reasonably to do a hybrid approach? I mean, to send out the sort of mailing you're describing to the seniors so they can mail in, and they're also the demographic that's probably less likely to be looking for information on the website.
That just changes the postage, because you're just sending it out to all residences at this on this route, and
So
now
you end
you're
up paying
kinda,
a higher rate.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
But I do think we could, with the postcard, it would catch everybody, and then they'll I mean, it's a little easier to read, right? It's a couple words on it, and then they can go where they want for the information. And if we do have the information on the website, but also like at the library or at the senior center, DPW, people will find it.
Are you doing a drive-through for the seniors?
No.
Okay. So everything's going to be at the DPW office?
Yeah, or mail in or online. I mean, it's all available still the same
Okay.
way, except that drive-through.
So the previous drive-through that the town clerk had organized, none of that's going to happen this year.
Correct.
So we save about $1,700, something like that, by doing a postcard, you think, Karen? Karen, $1,700.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You think we'll save?
I know it was a statement. Yeah, I would guess it must be around that. I don't know what the cost to print them would be. You know, whether we print them at our own place or whatever. I mean, it's just materials or, but yeah, I would think we could probably save $1,700.
I think
So somewhere in that $1,500 to $2,000 range.
Anytime we change something, we're probably going to get people who are unused to the change and say, I didn't hear about it. But on the other hand, given the budget pressures, it sounds like an interesting idea.
Could probably just put a sign up too at the transfer station to let folks know that the process is going to be a little bit different this year. If they use the transfer station, presumably they see the signs.
You would think, right? Yep.
Ms. Malinowski, anything else?
I think that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, Brian?
No questions. I was actually leaning towards agreeing with Karen to waive the $10 fee just to save the hassle for the folks at the DPW office, but I could go either way on that. I don't want to. Hopefully we can come to an agreement on that, but there's no other items that I had questions or comments on in the regulations.
Okay, Karen, a couple of quick things from me.
Yep.
Number one, about Ms. Malinowski's point on the mailing. In terms of, I mean, it's not a huge budget number, but I think it's reasonable. And this might be a nice springboard to the discussion and feasibility. I know it came up with discussions we had with advisory about the tax bill mailings. And take a look at exactly how much money we're spending on mailings for various things and see where there are, again, sort of embrace as much as we can the fact that we're in a digital age, and the fewer things we need to put in the mail and pay postage for, the better. So it's not a discussion we have to have today, but longer term, and maybe get an idea of exactly how much in any fiscal year we're spending on postage on various things, and whether there's a way to consolidate, to push people really hard to rely on the town's website rather than mailings for information about these various things. It might save us some money. And then the second thing, I guess this is also a longer conversation. I mean, I looked at the numbers, and I know there's a broader conversation coming up about the transfer station for whether or not it gets wrapped into the tax rate. But it struck me looking at the numbers that it just strikes me that one or two things make the most sense. Number one is wrapping it into the tax rate, or number two, paying for it entirely and make it it looked like at about $300, which is $50, $1 a week additional in fee, you'd basically be covering the entire cost, and you wouldn't have a deficit from the transfer station. And it just strikes me that one of those two things, right now we're in the middle. We're charging a fee, but we're not covering all the costs. It just strikes me that if we're going to charge a fee, we should cover the costs. And if we're not, then we wrap it into the tax rate. Again, not an issue for this. I think these rules and regs make an awful lot of sense for where we find ourselves in 2020. But, to put in the back of my mind and maybe other people's minds for down the road.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Marty, let me follow up if I may. I think you make a good policy point there. I think it's useful if we were able to take a position to say, going forward, we're going to continue to look at the mailing issue. Are we mailing too much? And in fact, we could take a position to say we ought to work hard to look at all the things we're mailing and move over time to a much more electronic position as a matter of policy and sort of motivate departments and others to do that and inform the public that this is what we're doing and help incentivize people to take a closer look at the electronic postings of information. So it saves money, and I think we're all better off to spend less money on things we can do electronically and use some of those resources to fund some of the people things that we've struggled with most recently here in the budget process. I think that's a much better position for the public generally.
Okay. Anything else? If not, is there a motion?
I guess I'll move that we approve the regulations as discussed here with a couple of minor edits. And I guess the intent to use a postcard mailer for the communication of this with appropriate support through message signs, postings at senior center and other places in town to alert people that the change is being made to electronic distribution of the forms for application. That capture what we talked about.
We didn't
Right.
capture the $10 though.
It's as in the regs.
Okay.
The $10 is there right now.
All right, that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Ms. Braccio. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor? Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy, aye. All right, Karen, you've got your rules and regulations.
Thank you.
I'd comment that Chelsea's off to a great start if she saves $1,700 every meeting.
We're gonna start tracking.
Do it each meeting, right?
Well, it goes up now. Next week it's 35.
Yeah, I'll keep looking.
All right, 3A sub B is an interesting proposal, Karen, the Mass DOT Shared Streets and Spaces Grant Program. And obviously we've got the materials you submitted for that. Do you want to add anything to it?
Well, I do want to note, and I saw that they're kind of on the Zoom meeting with us, that EDC did want to look at doing some different things. I did have a lot of people come to me about different things. Readiness is a bit of an issue with this grant, that you want to make sure you're ready, that we can get it bid and get it at least started within the 100 days that they give us. And the 100 days started yesterday. There's up to 3 grants that you can get per town. The max is 300,000. The least is 5,000. What the DPW is proposing is that we have the downtown project that we know is coming up. That includes extension of sidewalks up and down 85. What I'd like, and Newton Street. Newton Street is a little bit separated, and that's actually like about a $400,000 project. So if we could get the grant money for that, then we would actually, I mean, we'd still have to supplement some with allocated money, whether it's Chapter 90 or our own town road money. But we're pretty much extended on all our road money. It's and all our Chapter 90. It's all allocated to something at this point. So getting that grant to be able to do this would make this nice contiguous sidewalk that goes from the medical center. You could get all the way to Colonial Gardens on sidewalks, but you could then also get all the way to Parkerville Road on new sidewalks, then down Parkerville on the old sidewalk to get to Neary. You can get to Fay St. Mark's. You can get to the library, Woodward. So there's a lot of benefit if we can, like, that's a continuation of something that of a project and of a federally funded / state funded project of Main Street that I think would score well, and we would be able to get that full 300.
All right, I'm going to ask a couple of quick questions before I open it up to discussion. So there's some pretty hard deadlines in the incentive deadlines in the the state materials. So in terms of this project, if the project you're proposing, that's something that the town would be ready to move on in the shortest time frame, which is 15 to 30 days.
Yes, so we
Okay,
would
that's
pro- yeah.
yeah. Yes,
We
is
have
enough.
to have a couple public meetings because I don't want to like just shock everybody with it. We haven't had a lot of discussion about the project yet. So we would try to do that. And now that we're in the Zoom atmosphere, it's a little different. I was kind of, you know, you kind of want to talk to people one-on-one, but I think we're going to have to go the Zoom route to do this.
Okay. And this would basically build on, it was before Mr. Stivers, Ms. Malinowski and I think were on the Board of Selectmen, but I believe there was an initiative that was embraced to basically extend the Main Street project, which stops at Park Street down into the town center specifically. And this would, in addition to doing some other things, accomplish that as well?
So the downtown, we've already got allocated Chapter 90 funding to, and as part of that 85, there's an extension from the Main Street project on 85. And actually in that contract, we're probably going to bid the Deerfoot intersection, the Deerfoot flag intersection. And that's all been allocated Chapter 90 money to those.
So
Newton Street,
this would replace that Chapter 90 money, or would be in addition to that Chapter 90 money?
right, so all that work would still be under its own contract, but this would extend sidewalks now down Newton Street. So it would take the downtown project and extend it north on Newton Street. And it would get us to the medical building.
All right, my final question before I open it up to other folks who are chomping. It's $500,000 to $300,000. I guess it's two questions. It's $500,000 to $300,000. It's $500,000 to $300,000 per project, and each town is allowed up to 3.
That's my understanding of it. Yes, I mean,
Okay.
I don't think we would get three $300,000 projects.
All right, and finally, do you have a sense for what you're proposing would cost? Presumably less than $300,000, but do you have a sense where it would fall?
No, it's actually not less. My last budget of it was 400,000.
So the
So we
town
would-
out of Chapter 90 would cover 100.
Or out of our road maintenance money, yes.
Okay, all right, I'm all done. Sorry to hijack that. Ms. Braccio?
Yes,
Looks like you
thank
have
you.
some questions.
I actually just one question, Karen. So is there any way to be able to use or apply for a grant for some of this money towards the Corderville Road project here on the south side of town from, I know you guys are going to redo the sidewalks. There's a plan for that. Is there the opportunity to potentially submit something for that?
So that project is a little further off in its readiness. And we're looking really at being able to use complete streets for the sidewalks on that one, and then fund the rest. And that project the sidewalks have to be done in conjunction with the road, whereas Newton Street, the sidewalk and drainage basically can be done. There's not a lot of road work that has to be done. It's sidewalks and drainage versus Corderville, which is kind of like a whole redo.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, Mr. Shea?
All right. So Karen, from any preliminary work that you've done, have you determined if any easements are going to be required, or can everything be done on the Newton Street part all within the public right of way?
Right now, it looks like everything can be done within the public right of way. Some of the drainage improvements and everything, which currently go out over on Main Street, that I'm not sure how that all plays in, like that one outlet. I think we have an easement for that, but that old stuff, that's that old, it's hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll research that, but that shouldn't be an issue because it's already going there.
Okay,
Is
Question?
that it, Brian?
that was it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Stivers?
Karen, the limit is 300,000 a project. Does it make sense to try to break up the 400 into 2 projects, 2 pieces, and apply as 2 projects? To me, the challenge is to find something that's going to score well in terms of the award process, which I don't really understand. But it's a shame if we could apply for, 3 $300,000 projects or whatever. You never can tell. If you don't shoot, you don't score, as they say. So if there's anything else that we could try to include here, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe there aren't a lot of people who apply. Unlikely, but you just can't tell. So,
Very unlikely, right?
yeah.
I'm not sure what their cap is. I know that the buzz on it at least has been more so than has been on most of the other, money that we've been able to get for things. As far as DPWs go, everybody's kind of like, oh, great. Look, because a lot of towns are in that same process that we're in, where we want to start adding sidewalks. We've got complete streets. We're trying to move forward with things, and there's just not enough money at any of the tills. And now all of a sudden, like COVID, they're just throwing money at everything, and it's kind of like, well, geez, we're throwing it. Let's try to catch some. I don't believe. I kind of don't want to compete with ourselves on two big projects. Unless we're sure we can get one done. Whether we could, we could look at it, but I would
Karen,
like to try to get.
Let me jump in here, Karen. Sam, I guess my reaction to that is it's clever, but I have a feeling that what the state would do there is realize that we've broken up one project, and instead of giving us 300,000 and we pick up 100 grand, they give us 200,000 and we're left holding the bag for 200,000. I think that's a risk.
Understand, and I appreciate that. Or maybe there's another project, so we do this one is 300 and we pay 100, and there's another project out there that don't think is going to score as well, but is it worth putting in? So I again defer to Karen and others who are more technically capable of packaging the thing, but I would hate to leave something on the table with it. And final comment is that whatever we apply for, maybe we consider trying to get our legislators involved. Others, I'm sure, are going to be doing the same thing to try to reinforce the value of the project for Southware, et cetera. And it doesn't hurt to have them asking questions about how that's going, I think.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Ms. Malinowski, you have unmuted.
Yes, I just have one question. Karen, what would be the timeline if we were to apply for a second project?
So I think we could apply this week for one and this week for the other one. You could put them all at the same time. And I do think the EDC I know for a fact the EDC has interest, and actually they're on the wire here. But in some stuff, they definitely, as far as like doing some downtown work, that's something I know that they were interested in. It really doesn't fit into our 300,000, but that would be something that the EDC could pursue. You guys would have to vote to support that project also. And I don't know if they compete, if we chance getting $10,000 for something and not the 300, but on the other hand, if it's something that a lot of people want to do, obviously anything we can do to uplift the downtown is great. So.
Okay, thank you.
You've mentioned, Lisa, you got your hand up again?
Yeah, just go ahead,
Okay.
Marty. You go first, that's fine.
Oh, no. I was going to see, Karen's mentioned EDC a couple of times, and I was going to ask Vanessa and Katie if there are EDC people out there with their hands raised, if that's the procedure for letting us know that they want to weigh in.
Nobody has their hands raised right now, Marty, but John Wood is in the attendee waiting room, as is Marenka.
Okay, well,
If you'd like to speak to any of them.
if they wanted to weigh in, that's fine. But I think otherwise we'll go to Lisa.
Okay. Just a quick comment. I think I know when Karen, you initially brought this forward for Newton Street, I think this ties in with EDC, and I think it ties in really well with the downtown. We're putting walkability. A lot of people work at Southborough Medical, and it gives them the opportunity to bring them downtown. And it also, again, brings people from Colonial Gardens downtown. So I think what Karen's proposing falls right in with the EDC message of, bringing people and walkability. So I think it's a great project, Karen. That's all. Thank you.
And Karen, the final thing I'll say is that a lot of the discussion I've heard from and at various EDC functions is obviously support for making the downtown area more walkable. We've also heard that, though, from the trails people, from the open space people, from the recreation people in terms of just making, Southborough's concept of a downtown area a little bit larger and connecting, whether it's with bikes or walking trails or otherwise. So I don't know if it's helpful. I suspect that it wouldn't hurt. But touching base with the trails folks and the open space folks, as well as EDC, and being able to put in your application materials that they support this for initiatives that they are pursuing as well. I just think
Sure
that
would
gives it a
help.
more well-rounded view, and I also think it has the virtue of being accurate. So,
Amazing.
so has all right, Vanessa. I'm assuming that nobody from EDC has raised their hand, so I'm going to
Correct.
see. Okay, is there a motion?
I guess I'll move that we support Karen's proceeding with the application for the sidewalk project as she proposes.
Second.
All right. Any additional discussion? All in favor, Ms.
Sorry. I don't know if
Karen,
you have
when you're winning, you should stop talking.
sorry, I just don't know if you have to vote for the chair to be able to sign it. I don't know if it's just support or if the chair can sign. Mark maybe can speak to that. I don't know how that works.
I'll amend my motion to proceed with the condition that Mr. Healy can sign on behalf of the board in terms of the application.
If needed.
If
It
needed.
may not be. So, all right. That didn't undercut your presentation, Karen. So, all right. Mr. Stivers is moved
Second.
and seconded by Ms. Braccio. Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy is aye. Well done, Karen, and good luck with the
Thank you.
grant.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice night.
You too.
All right, moving on. Reports. That's interesting. Chair's report. I think in some respects, Mr. Stivers, your question maybe, I'll frame that as my report for tonight with one quick little addendum, and that is following on something that Mr. Shea said at the beginning about the Southborough Police Department. I will just note that I stopped by the police department this morning just to touch base with Chief Paulus. And my timing was such that I walked in while he was being surrounded by media outlets from Boston and environs with cameras everywhere. And we should be proud, and Southborough should be proud in this very isolated instance, the way the chief handled himself. And the way he answered questions and the way he represented the Southborough Police Department on behalf of the town of Southborough. So a shout out to Chief Paulus. I'm glad I was there and had an opportunity to see that, and it was incredibly well done. So that's my report, and we'll go in alphabetical order. Ms. Braccio, anything?
I could not agree with you more, Mr. Healy. And I just wanted to take a second and thank Selectman Shea again for his year as chair. I thought he brought an incredible level of patience and just amazing skills to the board. And again, I just want to thank you, Brian. And it was very appreciated the year that you served as chair again. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Ms. Malinowski.
Thank you. I just want to echo the sentiments of all of you that have commended our police department, and best wishes for all of them. I also am looking forward to working with all of you, and have enjoyed watching your meetings over the last couple of years. So now I'm looking forward to being on Zoom with you. So.
Mr. Shea.
Nothing from me, Marty.
Mr. Stivers.
I'll echo comments, appreciation for Mr. Shea's time in office here. As Mr. Healy commented, chairman of anything is a substantial job, that most of which is not very visible, major time consumer and major stress producer in terms of handling a lot of issues that come up. So appreciate Brian's efforts in that work, and best wishes for Marty and Lisa as they take that on going forward. I'm excited for the potential here. I think we can do a lot of great things this year, so I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, the final thing I'm going to say, and I was remiss in not, I was talking about Chief Paulus, who did a wonderful job, but best wishes to Sergeant DeLuca and speedy recovery for him. Next, consent agenda item. Oh, wait a minute. We have a town administrator who's now feeling neglected because the new chair jumped over him to the consent
okay.
agenda.
Look, it's not the first time I've a meeting. It happens all, so, I'm not getting a complex. It's okay. We got
Yes.
a whole year to fix it, Marty. Don't worry.
Notice that.
All right, Mr. Purple.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to echo the comments that the board has made regarding the incident last evening. When Chief Paulus came to Southborough, one of the things he wanted to focus on with the department as a whole, but with each individual officer, is development of those officers and training. And I think when you see an incident as unfortunate as it was to unfold last night, the outcome I think was, as positive as it was for the department overall, because a result of the training, and that really stood out. And I think that, as much credit as goes to the officers, it also goes to Chief Paulus for instilling that culture in that department. So really appreciate that. As some of you may have noticed, the flagpole in front of the townhouse looks a little funny. I do want to explain that. I've talked to some of you individually about this and sent out a couple of notes. Crown Castle had submitted a building permit to the building commissioner, saying that they needed to structurally reinforce the pole, and they were just going to switch out some antennas. The pictures before and after that was submitted did not show any discernible changes to the pole. However, as they came in and began to do the work, it became obvious that that was not in fact true. And so the building commissioner and the facilities director halted the project and basically called Crown Castle on, you really didn't tell us exactly what you were going to do. And rather than letting them finish the improvements, we had them remove the equipment and go back to square one. So since then, I've had conversations, and the building inspector commissioner has had conversations with Crown Castle directly. I've been told by Crown Castle they are going to put the flagpole back to its original condition. So it is going to look like a flagpole again, and not something that is going to take on new antennas or new technology or new capabilities. That being said, the flagpole has likely, since it was installed in 1999, it probably in its current form is not going to meet the needs of AT&T as the technology changes. So Crown Castle is going to be submitting something to us as to whether or not they look for the lease to continue, or that the lease, when it ends this September, October, that it may end, and we will be left with a flagpole per the lease agreement. So I wanted to let you know, kudos to the facilities director, John Parent, and to building commissioner Lori Lavoli for once we realized we had been sold a bill of goods, put a halt to the process, dialed it back, and the conversations with Crown Castle, have resulted in a hopefully basically reversing all of this work and putting it back the way it was within the next couple of weeks. So the one other thing I do want to point out is that we talked a little bit about grants and everything, and Karen had made a comment about, with all this COVID stuff, they're throwing money at things. Well, I was having a conversation with Representative Dykema this afternoon about a number of issues, but she did let me know that there are some technology grants that are in the pipeline. The House has passed them and they're now in the Senate. They'll be for both town and for school. And so I told her to keep us informed as to what those may be. We have had some good luck with getting some technology money for our fiber project for connecting the buildings and things of that nature. So hopefully we can benefit from that. And one last item, I will end on a little bit of a down note. Just before we went to meeting tonight, I was informed by the public health nurse. We have had on our COVID-19 counts, we've had 41 positives. One is in isolation, and 40 have been released. I was notified by Emily that the person in isolation has passed. It was someone in their 60s. And at this point, that is really all the information we have. So we have our first COVID-related death in Southborough. So, but you know, the other side of that is we have not had another positive case. It's been roughly 15 days or more since we've had the last positive case in Southborough. So that is what I have for you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, without knowing the identity of the person, that's obviously tragic news, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his or her family. That's a shame. This disease, this virus has taken a toll. All right. Item 5 is our consent agenda. I expect a number of these may be held. But for items A through I, are there any that members of the board want to hold?
Marty, if I may.
All right.
B and C, and just a question on H.
Okay, why don't you go with the question?
Okay, so is this putting the cart before the horse, Mr. Purple, or Chairman Healy, that we're discussing the outdoor seating policy and the approval authority, but now we're approving the alteration of premises request? Should we be doing one before the other, or is this just a process and
So I think it could be a chicken and the egg thing, Lisa. They both have to get done. The applications were done to try to expedite the manners, to try to move things along for our businesses. In a perfect world, we would have had you approve the regulations and then done the application form and everything, but we've tried to get this going so that hopefully after tonight, we could get the businesses, and in this case, New Rose Garden has decided not to apply, so it is simply Ola that is before us this evening. You know, we can get them going with their outdoor seating so we can try and help them kickstart their business.
okay, well, that being said, I have a couple questions on the application then, so. Whenever.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we kick H, 5H over to and include it in the discussion of 6A, because it is only that one entity now. I think that makes sense. So without any objection, we'll do that.
Thank you.
I'd hold I. I have a question about I.
And I'd like to hold A, please.
All right. So anything else? Are there any that go through? All right. So we're holding A, B, C. We're kicking over H and I.
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
Yes.
all right? So consent agenda items D, E, F, and G. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
I.
and Mr. Healy, aye. All right, let's take them in alphabetical order. So we're at B.
I held
Ms.
A,
Bartolini.
sorry.
A.
Oh, you had A.
I
I'm sorry.
held A. Sorry, yeah, I'm just gonna abstain, so.
Okay.
I will move item A, approve open session minutes from June 2, June 8, and June 9.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none. Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Abstain.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
I.
and Mr. Healy is aye. Ms. Braccio, I think you held B.
I did. I just wanted to take a second and on behalf of the board, thank Mr. Ms. Bartolini for all the time and effort she's given to the town over the many years she served in the many different capacities that she served. I did try to talk her at town meeting out of resigning. It didn't work so well, but I just, from the bottom of our heart, we very rarely get a volunteer that serves as long as Kathy has served. So I just want to wish her well on her retirement, let her know that she will be missed, and the contributions she made are so appreciated. That's it.
Anyone else on Ms. Bartolini? Other than echoing Ms. Braccio's thoughts, which I certainly do.
Ditto.
Okay. And she'll be back. She'll be back. She said she was taking a break, not that she was retiring. She'll be back. Too much energy and commitment in that woman. So, but why don't let's hold on B for a second, and because there might be some similar sentiment. Let's go to C. At least you held that as well.
Also, I wanted to wish Ms. Remillard well, thank her for the time and the service that she's given to the town. And again, just thank her again on behalf of the board. That was all.
Right. Again, hear from, I think, all of us on that as well. All right. H, we kicked over, and Mr. Stivers, I believe it was you who said you had some questions on I.
Question on I. Saw the list. Just wanted to be sure that we're being as aggressive as possible in terms of looking for reimbursement. There, the number was $100,000. It's suspiciously round numbers, so you wonder, are we estimating their actual real numbers that we can tie back to and demonstrate that we spent it, it fits the category, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's obviously, that's a round number like that, same as obviously an estimated number. And, I don't think that we're anywhere near that number in terms of reimbursement. But we wanted to make sure that, that those categories that are provided are essentially the categories that we can use based on the DOR guidance. And we made sure the number had significant amount of padding in case there are things that we can put into that. And this is simply things from fiscal 20. Okay, starting July 1st, that's a whole new ball game. And so if there's anything we come up with, whether it's the DocuSign software and all of that stuff, all of that is going to be able to go in and be eligible for reimbursement.
Good. And again, I saw the original list, which I was impressed with its breadth. So it sure seemed to me that there was a lot of capacity for doing things that, maybe are heightened by the need given the COVID situation and remote meeting stuff, things like document processing electronically versus paper documents that we could work to make qualify for the reimbursement if we work at it creatively a little bit. I would urge us to be very aggressive about that and see what we can do.
Yeah, I think that, the cost of the Zoom software, Sam.
Yep.
I know we all love this environment, and but this is not something I think we all would have signed up for, were it not a necessity for us to continue to conduct the business of the town in a safe manner.
Yeah. New shirts for all Zoom participants.
So it sounds, Mr. Purple, that your answer to Mr. Stivers' question is that we have, in terms of the fiscal year 20, we have been aggressive with that $100,000 number.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Chelsea?
Mr. Purple, have we applied for all of those items through the CARES Act or through FEMA yet, or where are we at with that process?
No, we have not. The state has told us that we should wait until, to do it closer to the end of June for the state. For the federal, it wasn't like we were going to get if we applied now, it wasn't like we were going to get the money back from the federal before the end of the fiscal year. So it wasn't going to help us in that regard. And we weren't really running any deficits that couldn't be covered. So the suggestion is to wait a little bit longer and apply, apply for a bigger number. And then, because it's still going to probably be October by the time we see any reimbursement from it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any additional discussion on those items? All right. So is there a motion for items B, C, and I?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. All in favor, Ms. Braccio? You're muted.
You're muted, Lisa.
That doesn't happen often. Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy is aye. All right. Well, next up is pulling over the one we just kicked, item 5H, the approval for alcohol license alteration of premises request for outdoor seating for Ola, as well as item 6A, which is the discussion of the outdoor seating policy and approval authority. And again, Mr. Purple, appreciate the materials you provided. They were, for the most part, pretty self-explanatory. Do you want to add anything about those before we move on to the discussion of the policy? And it sounds like there might be some questions on the application.
Yeah, I'd like to start by saying I take no credit for this whatsoever. Mrs. Hale has been the one who has steered the ship with this, with Lori Esposito in our office, with the building commissioner, Lori Lavoli, fire chief, police chief, with Marika, in EDC, and also in building, planning, with Karina. She's done a very nice job of pulling this all together. So I'll let Mrs. Hale speak to, the policy piece of it, and then we can jointly handle any questions you may have on the application.
So this was definitely a collaborative effort, just as Mr. Purple just indicated, with all of our code and permitting departments that, would have a role in this. We've talked to a number of different communities over the last 10 days to 2 weeks to figure out, what was working and what wasn't, where their glitches were. And we're very pleased with this final document. Of course, after we spent the last 2 weeks on this, the governor said, indoor dining, is now open. So, but we are still really hopeful that this helps some of our local businesses get back on their feet a little bit, because as we all know, we are, unsure of when the next wave of COVID is. So even if it, is not used emphatically right now, we certainly believe it will be during the, later course of the summer and into the fall. But Ola has been asking for this right as soon as they could. So we're excited to help them and others get going.
All right. I guess first about the policy, any comments or discussion? Ms. Braccio.
Just a comment. Again, I think this is long overdue. I completely support this process for our businesses. Anything we can do to help them. I just had a question on the application procedure. If the outdoor seating plan is acceptable, town departments will provide comments and the application is complete. The town administrator will approve and execute the permits. My only concern with that is based on the application we got, I know I have questions on it. So I would like the board to be involved in that process. And again, it's nothing against Mr. Purple, but I would think that maybe I could come up with a different question, as Chelsea or Brian could come up with a different question. So I would just like to see the board involved in that process a little. I think if an application comes in, I think this board could meet relatively quickly for a brief meeting to answer any questions and get it done. So that's my only point. Other than that, I thought the policy was great. You guys did a great job in putting it together so quickly to be able to help our businesses. So I thank you for that.
Lisa, let me ask you on that. Would you be comfortable with, because obviously moving quickly is what Mr. Purple, the reason he did that. Would
Yep.
would you be comfortable with something like, and obviously Mr. Purple, would you be comfortable with when an application comes in that it gets circulated to the board and almost the way we do it town meeting and with our consent agenda? If there's a hold, then it goes on our next agenda. But if there's not, then Mr. Purple has the authority to sign off on it.
I think that's more than acceptable.
I'm just Mark can weigh in, certainly. I'm just a little concerned that might be considered deliberation over email.
I don't think so. We're just, I don't, I am comfortable that that's not deliberation.
Okay,
With no explanation, just say, I asked.
then I'm good. Okay.
Well, and I think it should be direct mailing to Mark, not amongst
absolutely.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not-
Absolutely.
So no
Agreed.
reply
Okay,
all,
thank
just
you.
a single reply to Mark, I think could do it. And I think that
So-
would work as well.
I just have a quick question about that. Would we have to wait for our next meeting, or would we be able to schedule a meeting? Like, let's say an application came in tomorrow and we're not scheduled to meet for another 2 weeks. Would we be able to meet in the interim to approve something?
We would ask for a special meeting.
Okay.
Which is probably not too hard to do. And my guess is there aren't that
Right.
many restaurants in town, so it's not something that's going to happen every week kind of thing. So
Right.
Yeah, just to,
like 2 others or something. So
yeah, just to give a little context, Sam, that's probably a good idea. When Vanessa had put this all together and an email went out to the group afterwards as to here is the results, there were really 5 establishments that were potentially in play of doing this. And then as you saw, there were 2 that came forward and then 1 backed out because they're going to wait and see how, now that they can have people seating indoors to some extent, how that works out along with takeout.
right.
I think Vanessa's right. You know, that, okay, here we are now, we're approving the outdoor application, just as the governor says, okay, you can start to move back indoors if you want to. So I really don't know how much people are really going to take advantage of this. I really think, you know, in some cities and towns, I mean, obviously Boston is the big one. You know, when you look at the North End and, you know, my living room is bigger than most of those rest of those restaurants. Moving outside and everything provides a great atmosphere, and it does an awful lot. But, you know, I don't know that we're obviously not going to see that same level here, but to have the ability to do it if somebody needs it, that's great. And I'm fine with whatever process that you're comfortable with, just as so long as we can maintain the expediency to help the businesses.
Completely agree, Mark.
Marty, just one last quick question.
Brian?
And just so I'm clear, that any establishment that has a liquor license associated with it, that automatically has to come before the board for approval,
That's
right?
correct. Yes.
But if it doesn't have an alcohol license associated with it, there's the potential that that could be funneled through directly through you.
Yes.
Correct.
And the sort of hybrid of that, obviously, even if you have an alcohol license, could you ask for outdoor seating but not have alcohol sales out there? I suppose you could. Might be kind of an odd thing to do, but
You could, but I think that from a financial standpoint, you're kind of cutting your nose off if you have the
right.
ability to do
That's the moneymaker.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd still like to be informed of anybody who doesn't have an alcohol license if they've applied for this. I guess I'm interested in knowing what's going on out there. So Mark, if an application comes into you that doesn't technically need to go to the board, I'd appreciate your circulating that so folks.
I'm fine. Well, I think the understanding is that any application that comes in, I'm going to circulate it to the board anyway. And if there's someone who says they'd like to see it on an agenda, then we'll schedule a special meeting. I'll work with the chair to schedule a special meeting to get that taken care of as quickly as possible.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'll just add as a final note that, you know, I guess if I wouldn't have had questions on the application that came in, it would have been a more of a non-issue for me, but because I did have questions, so that was why.
Okay. So let's. Are there any other discussion on this? Is just having to do with 6A now, and then we'll get to the application itself. Any other discussion on 6A, the outdoor seating policy? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve the policy amended by the conversation here recently.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Ms. Braccio?
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski?
Aye.
Mr. Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Stivers?
Aye.
And Mr. Healy is aye. And now for going back to consent agenda item 5H, the approval of the alcohol license alteration of premises request for outdoor seating by Ola. And Ms. Braccio, you said so you had some questions about the application.
Yes, just 2 questions. One of the things, and maybe I missed it in the application, I'm just curious what the lighting is going to be in the parking lot based on the hours that they have listed till 10 o'clock Monday through Thursday, 11 o'clock Friday and Saturday, and 9 o'clock on Sunday. I just wonder if anyone knows how they plan on lighting this tent. It is somewhat in a residential neighborhood, so I'm just curious if there's been any discussion on that.
I don't have any details on the lighting. I've looked at the plans. Obviously there's got to be some lighting, Lisa, but I don't have the details on that. And I can follow up obviously with those details. I'll just make a note on that obviously before it's approved that everyone understands what the lighting plan is.
Okay, so that was question one, and then I just have one other question. Has any consideration been given? I know this is through November 1st, and again, I think outdoor dining is fabulous. But has any consideration been given to Triple E based on where we sat last year with summer nights being canceled and whatnot, where we do have hours? Has the Board of Health given any thought on their process? I assume they've opined on this. So again, that's just a question.
The health agent did not have any concerns about the outdoor dining piece. He did not address Triple E, but I am going to sit in on their virtual meeting on Thursday morning. So I can bring up that point with the Board of Health as well.
Perfect. Then that's it for me. Mr. Healy, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Malinowski?
I have two questions. Do we know if the residents were notified by OLA or the town of outdoor dining being across the street from them?
They were not. During one of the provisions of what the state has allowed us to do for outdoor dining waives the requirement for, normally when there's a liquor license hearing, we would be doing a butters notice, a legal notice, etc. All of that has been waived by the state of Massachusetts for this process right now. So they were not formally notified in any way.
Okay.
Although I will say that during the planning board meeting last night, they also emphasized to make it very specific to OLA, especially because of where they're located in that plaza, that, no parking whatsoever on the corner or on Breakneck Hill because of communication we've had from residents in that neighborhood in the past.
Okay. And my second question is, as you pull into that parking lot and take a left, the seating will be on the right, correct? So will you be able to still take a left? And so if you're coming from the light from Route 9, you're essentially doing a 180 to go into that parking lot. Is there what kind of barriers will exist outside of those tables with cars coming in there? Do we know?
I'm not sure. Mark, do you know that?
I don't, but again, that's something that, we can get that specific information and provide that to the board before it's approved.
Okay.
I mean, is there a safety issue there needing Jersey barrier, for example, to separate? I mean, there's room for a car to move behind those parking places, but also room for a car to veer toward the tables there potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa, you said the various departments, including the police department, were involved in the discussions about this?
Correct.
All right, maybe it's as simple as just making sure that the police department is comfortable with whatever the setup
Of
is.
the layout. Yep. I'll follow up.
Okay, thank you.
And the final thing is, I guess, following on Ms. Malinowski's point, it doesn't have to be a formal letter or something like that, but I guess just from a comfort level, if you could set out the concerns that were raised by the planning board and that were affirmed tonight about the neighborhood and the parking, put it, even if it's just in an email, just so there's a written communication to OLA that lays those out.
Certainly, I would envision that we have to give them something that they can post, so it's publicly viewable, that we would have, sort of a footnote of, these are, the primary issues, to be cognizant of, but it certainly would also be included in a cover letter.
Okay. All right, any other discussion?
I had a couple of comments, but they were fixed in the updated version of the application, so I'm all set.
Okay.
Great.
All right, so is there a motion to approve OLA's application as set out in the agenda?
So move.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Shea. All in favor, Ms. Braccio?
Mute.
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski?
Aye.
Mr. Shea?
Aye.
Mr. Stivers?
Aye.
And Mr. Healy is aye. I And I guess the thing I will say after we've gone through this process is, as with a lot of things, I think post-COVID, that some things that we didn't do before and didn't even think about before, light bulbs might go off in various people's heads, and particularly with the work that's going to be done in the downtown area, some restaurants there that I encourage the other restaurants to think about outdoor dining. I think, obviously the world has changed a lot the last 3 months, and I don't think outdoor dining in downtown Southborough is, I see those people in front of Morrow's Cafe, and they seem like they're having a grand old time. So that's just my one comment on all that. All right, move on to item 7A, and it sounds like the representatives from the EDC have been quite patient listening to us. And are they still there, Vanessa?
They are, and Ms. Reynolds has her hand up. Do you want to take that communication now, or do you prefer to wait?
Well, I will hold on. I'd like to hear it's their proposal before we engage in any discussion, to see if they have anything to add to what they
Mr.
put on
Wood
paper.
also, I didn't realize until just a second ago, Mr. Wood also has his hand up from the EDC.
All right, and now everybody's about to see just how bad I am with technology. I just have to hit the hand, I think, to start off.
You just want to give permission to talk, allowed to talk? Or we can do that on our end.
I can't, I just get the hands.
Okay, Katie, can you give Mr. Wood permission to talk? Or bring him over as a panelist?
I'm not the host anymore, so I think Mr. Healy would have to make me the host. If you could do that.
Boy, and everybody thought this was so easy all these months.
Well, I am good at taking instructions, but there are no. I hit the hand item, and then.
You hover over his name, over John Wood's name, Marty. It might give you more options.
Yeah, it's not.
Or move to panelist.
It is not giving me options at all. Ms. Reynolds and Mr. Wood are both up there.
Okay. If you hover over my name, are you able to make me host again?
Assigned co-host. I just assigned you as co-host.
Hang on a second.
Maybe you'll have better luck than I do with the hands.
Here comes Mr. Wood.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I've been having some intermittent Wi-Fi issues tonight, so I apologize if I break up or come out. So, as you know, Kathy resigned at the end of this month after 50 years of service. I think she's deserved it, and those are some big shoes to fill. But I also think Mr. Healy's correct. She'll be back. So for tonight's consideration, I respectfully ask the Board of Selectmen to consider shrinking the size of the Economic Development Committee to 7 members from 9, just due to quorum issues. We're going to be down to 6 members at the end of the month. So it would be great if we could have the committee down to 7. Ideally, as I've told you guys all in the past, for a future consideration, I'd like to have it stay at 9 members with the possibility of a selectman, or select person from the board being on, as well as somebody from planning. Prior to the COVID virus coming around, we started looking at successful towns where they had a successful EDC. And most of them, if not all, had at least somebody from planning, somebody from the board of select person, as well as either an administrator, assistant administrator, some sort of that effect. So I haven't spoke officially with planning yet, so I know I can't have that go for a vote. And I'm not sure if that has to go before town meeting to change it that much, or if it's in the selectmen's charge or not. But I'd like that to be on a future agenda, if possible, to consider having select person as well as somebody from planning on. I initially wanted to have somebody for advisory as well, so we have a more collaborative effort throughout the whole process of anything we do. But advisory can only be on one ad hoc committee, not a regular committee. So that's why I didn't ask for that person. So I will ask if you have any questions for me or thoughts.
I've got a comment.
All right, go ahead, Sam.
I actually attend a number of the EDC meetings. I think this is a good idea to help them function better, at least in the near term. And as I understand it from the bylaw affecting EDC, they're authorized for up to 9 members. So the bylaw doesn't say specifically 9. So it seems to me we've got the ability to change the number of people we appoint, basically, and thereby change the number of people. I think we could appoint a planning board member or a member of the Board of Selectmen to it. I'm not particularly convinced that that's a good idea for the Board of Selectmen, frankly, in that, you know, I go to a lot of those meetings, and so I'm able to hear what's going on. Not clear that we need a vote there. I think the real issue is to find a way to have the Board of Selectmen create more what I describe as leadership relative to what we think ought to happen downtown and with other EDC activities to help them focus on things that we collectively think are important. And I think we can transmit that information without having somebody being technically a member of the EDC. So you know, I don't necessarily resist it, but I'm not compelled by the need for that one myself, at least.
I think, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think that for me, it would great to be, I'd rather have you as that person, as that member, as a voting member, just because that way you have more skin in the game. If you have a vote, you're going to come to more meetings. That's just my personal opinion.
I don't know how I can come to
You
more.
can. I don't mean you personally, but I mean, it would be, you know,
they're fun, certainly, but
oh, absolutely. But that's my thought process. I'd rather have it as a voting member personally, to have some skin in the game, as well as planning as well. But I apologize for interrupting.
Mr. Chairman, I think the one thing to point out, and I know that if you you know, listen to the town clerk at town meetings and everything, and that the wording of this bylaw, I think, drives him a little bit batty, because it says up to 9 members. So I think when it comes to the committee, he's carrying 9 spots. And then that becomes an issue in terms of who can vote and who can, you know, I agree with Mr. Wood. I've sat in on some other EDCs in other communities, and they are structured as he says, and you know, they do a nice job, and I think it helps with the collaborative process. I think that if we want to do this, we should do this correctly and come up with what we think the membership should be, and then amend the bylaw at the next town meeting to try to, you know, give it some clarity, which then, you know, will provide you with, you know, provide the clerk with the clarity too, as to what members he's, you know, actually having appointed, and then what a quorum is.
Yeah, John, this is Marty. It sounds like you're worried about, obviously, we're hoping to be able to have a special town meeting in the fall. You're worried about, given Kathy Bartolini's resignation, whether or not you're going to be able to have meetings if the identified size of the committee is 9. Is that
correct? That
fair?
is correct.
Okay.
If I may, Marty?
Yeah, Lisa.
So I completely support and I understand the reason for downsizing the committee. And if I'm not mistaken, Mark, wasn't this done one other time? This isn't the first time that we've lowered the membership on this.
So you did this previously when it was an ad hoc committee, but
Okay.
you have not addressed it since it's become a statutory committee.
Okay, so I completely support that piece of it. I think I'd like to have more discussion and more consideration. I agree with Sam on some of the concerns he brought up. I think I've attended a lot of the meetings. Sam attends the meetings. I think we, as a board, probably are very in tune to what's going on because of the downtown initiative. I worry about having a voting member where we have an employee and we have a budget that comes before us as well. So I'm a little concerned about that. I think that there's plenty of people on this board that are more than willing to give input and guidance and leadership. And I think, you know, since this is going in the fall, I think, you know, this board has gone in that direction. I think we've been very supportive of the downtown initiative and how we get there. So I don't know that I'm ready to vote on changing the structure of the committee at this point. I'd really like to give that more thought.
Do you mean just the committee members or the complete restructuring? Because the restructuring, I didn't
Just-
even want to just, I just
Okay.
wanted to put that out for discussion today. I really want to look at a bunch of other towns and see how they're set up and bring this, like I said, at a future meeting. So I'm not even asking for that tonight. I just wanted to
That's fine.
put my ideal situation out there, is to
Nope.
have somebody from planning as well as Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
on
and so for the first piece, I'm completely supportive, John, of lowering the number so you guys can meet and continue the work that you've been charged to do.
Because, right, especially with the financial situation, the way it's going to be, we're losing business to Marlboro, we're losing business to Westboro, we're losing business to Framingham. I'd like to try to slow the bleeding down on these vacancy rates. After this pandemic's over, who knows what Route 9 is going to look like. So it would be great to have the tools I need to keep what I can. And everybody I speak with at these different companies, you know, they're very, very nice to talk to, but they want to talk to the movers and the shakers, and that's all of you. So that's, again, that's why I'd like to have that for a future. Again, I haven't even put this on planning's agenda to even see if it's something they'd be interested in. So that was, I just wanted to put it out there for your consideration for a future meeting.
Thank you, John. And I would support it for a future meeting for the second piece. Absolutely.
Mr. Shea, you're unmuted. Does that mean you want to make some comments?
No, Samuel, I agree with Ms. Braccio. I agree with the move to reduce the membership tonight, but again, not ready to address changing the structure tonight.
All right. Ms. Malinowski, are you all set?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And Mark, do you have concern? I will tell you, I took a look at the, I mean, yeah, like everybody else. I mean, I took a look at the bylaw and then the 2017 town meeting where it was adopted, and it's the same language out of that. And then, you know, made what is always an unfruitful trip to the Attorney General's website to see if there was some guidance on when you've got language like up to 9 members, whether or not the executive body, that is us, could by a vote reduce the specified number of members of the committee to, for instance, here 7. I guess where I come down for purposes of tonight is that the way I interpret the guidance on the Attorney General's website is that if you have a committee with a specified number of members, then you can't reduce the quorum requirement. We don't have that. So I guess 2 things. Number one, I would be comfortable tonight reducing the specified size of the committee to 7 people. And then the second thing, though, is I'm not hopeful that it's going to be any more productive, and I'm happy to do it, is to make a phone call to the Attorney General's office, let them know what the vote is that we've taken in terms of the size of a committee, and see if there is an issue that they raise. Because John, I don't want to get you guys in trouble.
I appreciate that.
Does that make sense to folks that we take that step tonight, and then I'll hopefully in the next day or 2 make a phone call to the AG's office and see if I can get some additional clarity. Mark, first of all, since you raised the issue, you raised it 2 ways. Number one, in terms of the size, we're not going to take any action. It doesn't sound like nobody's got an appetite for taking action on changing the specified constitution of the committee. But in terms of the number, do you have a severe reservation with that if we take that action tonight?
No, I don't think so. It's funny, while you were talking, I did pull up the website, and normally if you had a committee, say of 9, the website would show, because right now it shows the 7 members, it would show 7 members and 2 vacancies. But right now it simply shows the 7 members, including Miss Bartolini. So it may be that, and that would be checking with the clerk's office to understand, you know, how he's carrying this. Is he assuming that it's 7 members and 2 vacancies. It's just not showing on the website because in most committees, the vacancies do show when you pull them up.
All right,
So
well, what,
because of the way it's worded, it could simply be that he is just, as long as it's not more than 9, he's just simply putting what's up there.
all right, then I am going to move that, consistent with the letter and intent of the bylaw passed in 2017, that allows a economic development committee in a size up to 9 members, that the Board of Selectmen specify that as of June 23rd, 2020, that the specified size of the Economic Development Committee for purposes of a quorum and otherwise will be 7 members.
Second.
Additional discussion. Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy is aye. And John, I will, so that motion passes, and I will let Mr. Purple know and let you know what I hear from the Attorney General's office. I suspect it's not going to be definitive. That's usually not the way they operate, but hopefully it'll be somewhat instructive.
I thought
So-
lawyers were always definitive, Marty.
Yeah, we're definitive on both sides of an issue.
So until I hear back from you, should I just assume that I still need 7? I'm sorry, I still need 5 for a quorum?
No,
Oh, thank you.
no,
Appreciate
we
that.
voted. We voted. Your committee is 7 people as of today.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
And
it very much.
we'll inform the town clerk of that tomorrow.
And I look forward to any input you guys have for restructuring how you'd like to see it, or any thoughts, because I think this is the time to have one and get the business on Route 9 that we can, to be totally honest. This is why you have an EDC. I appreciate the tools to make it successful. And I appreciate you doing this tonight. And what I didn't say earlier, thank you for running, and congratulations on your elections, Lisa and Chelsea.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
Thanks, John. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great night, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
You too.
All right. Item 7B, discussion of a revised charge for a new golf course committee. Mr. Purple, other than that language, I don't think we've got any proposed charge in our materials. Do you want to
No.
just tell us where we find ourselves?
So I think we find ourselves where I think we hope we'd find ourselves at some point. When the golf course committee was put together, their charge was essentially to help shepherd the golf course from their old location to the new location, and to find a way for the course to continue and be productive through the construction of the public safety facility, and then also make sure that the renovation work to the holes that were most affected by the move were taken care of. All that's been done. Assabet has done their work, and now a lot of the committee members that were involved in that effort, I think, feel that they've completed their work and they've kind of moved on. And I believe that the second iteration of this committee should be focusing more on the long term. And becoming a conduit between the management company and the Board of Selectmen to try to ensure that the needs of the golf course are met, whether they be capital or otherwise, or operational, and just to try to be that connection between the town and the management company. So again, it's focusing a lot less on trying to navigate through a difficult period. It's trying to, look at the course long term and look at the operation long term.
All right, maybe we can zip through this quickly. I can't imagine that the concept is not supportive, particularly as I drive by the golf course every day and see just how much use it's getting in the months of May and June. I'm assuming that you, maybe in conjunction with former members of the committee, will come up with a new charge to propose to us, and we can consider it at a future meeting. Is that what you've got in mind?
Yeah, I would think that because you can't assign more than one, if there was a board member who wanted to work with work with me and maybe John Parent, or work with staff to come up with a draft charge for the new committee, and then bring that back to the board for consideration at a future meeting. I think that's the direction I'm looking for.
All right, Mr. Stivers, you look like you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had a comment. I'd actually be willing to volunteer for that unless somebody else really wants to do it. I'd be happy to defer. But I actually attended the golf course committee meetings previously, and it was interesting. I think that this is exactly the right move. I would broaden Mr. Purple's statement a little bit. I think it's more than a conduit. I think it's assistance with marketing the program. We actually, as part of the golf course committee meetings, heard from several external people who ran golf courses, and I was impressed by the range of opportunities that they talked about in terms of things we might do to more aggressively market the course in terms of increased utilization. And it's also impressive that this is largely a fixed cost operation. So if we're doing 10 or 15,000 rounds a year now, it doesn't cost us that much more money to bump that to 25 or 30,000 rounds. And the estimates were the course could withstand a substantially greater utilization. A lot of that money goes through the bottom line. So I think that the committee actually talked about the need for marketing input going forward. And I think that's an important dimension to have as part of the charter. Quick sidebar comment. I saw the financial report recently distributed. Good news that they seem to be doing well. I think that there is actually more useful information that might be helpful to us. And I would propose to sit down with Mr. Purple and talk about how we might update that financial report to give a little clearer picture in terms of what's going on with the course. Don't want to be burdensome to them from a reporting standpoint, but I think there's some interesting numbers that we could be looking at in terms of how the golf course is tracking. So anyway, I think great opportunity there. And I think, of course, worth strong support from us and others.
Ms. Malinowski, you're unmuted. Does that mean?
So I would also be happy to help draft something as well. I think there's a lot of, given the situation that we're in, golf courses are very busy right now. So I think it's a great opportunity for residents in town to be utilizing. So I'm just supportive of the idea of having, some oversight moving forward.
Brian and Lisa, are you all set?
I am.
I
All right.
am as well.
I volunteer Chelsea as the.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sam, I'm
yes.
with you 100%. As the newbie, it's always the way it goes. So
You'll learn your lesson soon, Chelsea, to take a step backwards instead of a step forward. But for now, thank you for doing that. And it sounds like I don't think we need a vote. We will just, I will designate you to work with Mr. Purple on this.
All right. Lucky Mr. Purple.
All right, great. All right, 7C, appoint a Board of Selectmen member to the Metro West Regional Collaborative.
So Marty, I'll jump in here. So I've actually been the board's representative on the Metro West Regional Collaborative for the last couple of years or so, at least 2 years. In all honesty, before the pandemic hit, there were a number of instances where I had work conflicts and was unable to attend meetings recently. Did attend a number of them when I was first appointed. It's actually a very, very good group. It's representatives from either the Board of Selectmen or planning from a number of the towns in the Metro West area. And it's just a good forum for hearing from the Metro West collaborative itself on initiatives they're undertaking. There's actually a meeting on Thursday of this week where they're going to be discussing Mass DOT grant funding opportunities. They'll also be providing project updates on the I-90, I-495 interchange improvement project, and also the I-90 Alston interchange improvement. And while that is in Alston and there isn't an Alston representative on this, that the proposals that have been put together on that have had an impact on the commuter rail service. So the Metro West communities have an interest in how that project is going to play out to determine what type of impact it may have on commuter rail traffic coming from the Metro West area. So
All right,
again,
I
they
am-
meet once a, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would right here assert a prerogative, and I know Mr. Stivers is up to his knees or ankles in sewage and water with MWRA stuff and everything like that. Ms. Malinowski, we just
Mostly sewage.
I think this is something that seems right up Ms. Braccio's alley. If
Oh,
she would be
no.
willing. No?
No, you know what? I'm on the master plan, the capital plan.
All right, you just have
SHOP-C.
to say no. That's fine. That's
Thank
fine.
you, but I think I was going to suggest if Brian didn't want to continue to do it, I would fully support Brian to continue. But if he doesn't want to, then I think Marty, you or Sam would be just perfect. I don't know that Chelsea, do you have an interest in this as well?
I would defer to Marty and Sam if
Okay.
there is.
So,
Hey,
so
Sam,
Bri-
I'll take this one.
Thank you. I was going to.
They said commuter rail. If I have one bugaboo that I'd like to bend anyone in state government's ear about, it's commuter rail. So I'm happy to do it.
Do we need more or
Good.
less?
Better.
Better.
It is remarkable that Monday was the first day after 3 months that they put the commuter rail back up to its full service, and the first notice that came across was that the Worcester line was running late. It's like they had 3 months to get the trains ready. Jeez.
Still
So
clearing
I-
snow off the tracks, or is that?
Yeah. All right, so I formally designate myself to.
All right.
Good
And I didn't take the advice I gave you, Chelsea. I forgot to take a step backwards.
So I know typically the planning board also has a representative
Yep.
that attends this, and I believe that they voted last night on who their representative was going to be. I did not see their meeting. I'm not sure who they selected as well, but in the past it's been Ms. Luttrell for that.
I am going to, if there's no objection, the next two things we have on the agenda are under 7, summer schedule for selectmen's meeting and schedule of the annual goal setting meeting. That's real inside baseball. And so I don't know if there's anybody lurking out there, Vanessa, in the public comment domain. But without objection, I'd like to move item 8 up right now, see if there's public comment, and then we can talk about, as I said, the inside baseball for scheduling.
Sure, there is, Mr. Litt does have his hand raised for public comment.
All right.
Bring him over.
Timoth, how are you?
It's Timothy, but I'm doing okay. Glad
Oh.
to see that you're all here.
How come you don't have a Y at the end of your name then?
That's a story that's not for the public,
Okay, fair enough. All right, I apologize, Timothy.
although it is a story.
Okay.
I just wanted to remind the board that the lack of safe pedestrian access to the public safety building is an open, ongoing issue. It's been open since about September or so. Various boards and committees have taken the position that we ought to do something. The last action I'm aware of was that the Public Safety Building Committee referred it to the Board of Selectmen, and I haven't heard anything since. I'm a bit disappointed. I wanted to remind you that the issue hasn't gone away.
Fair enough. Noted. And I promise it'll be on, if not our next agenda, one of the upcoming agendas to at least get the ball rolling on addressing the issue.
Great, thanks.
All right.
Maybe something that could be part of the sidewalk initiative that Ms. Galligan is proposing.
I was thinking the same thing.
Good.
Anyone else, Vanessa?
Nope.
Okay, then I'm going to close public comment and move on to item. What do folks want to talk about first? The scheduling of the annual goal setting or the summer schedule generally? It might be better to talk about the goal setting first, if that makes sense. But I'm indifferent as to which one we talk about first.
I'm flexible on both, so I don't have an opinion.
All right. All right. Well, let's go with goal setting. When do people want to do it?
Sooner the better.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Ms. Malinowski, I'm guessing you want to do it sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. It strikes me the only complicating factor for all of this is 2 weeks from now is the 4th of July. I mean, honestly, I'd be willing to do it as soon as next week. It's short notice. Mr. Purple, do you have any thoughts on whether or not it makes sense to try to pull it together that quickly or to push it off a little bit? I know last year you sent around a spreadsheet to get some data and input from us beforehand. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it, just to go back a little further, I think it would have been better to talk about your summer schedule first so that we could kind of get those dates set, and then you can work around that just to decide when you want to do your retreat. That being said, you know, we can, you know, Mrs. Hale and I would, you know, make ourselves available, you know, pretty much, you know, anytime that you know, that the board wants to set it. If you want to try and get this not done before the 4th of July holiday, I think that's great. I was hoping that the board would have you know, normally when it comes to your summer schedule, we try to schedule one meeting in July, one meeting in August, and space them out kind of proportionately. And those are your business meetings for the month. Doesn't mean we can't put special meetings around them as we need them. For example, I'm hoping that the board will meet on July 7th. We do have some year-end issues that we do need to take care of prior to July 15th for some to close out the year. We have some interdepartmental transfers I'm working with the finance team on. Advisory then needs to meet and vote on those as well. I'm not sure whether we could coordinate a joint meeting or not, but other than that date, picking a date in July and picking a date, you know, in August is, you know, would be the other for us to handle our regular business would be the normal schedule for the summer. But I'll defer to you, Mr. Chairman, in terms of, I don't have anything that says we couldn't do this next week if you wanted to.
Well, hey,
Marty?
yeah, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
No, just that I guess I shouldn't have said I'm totally flexible. I'm getting ready to go to Michigan and I won't be back till the 11th of July. So I have spotty internet in a cabin on the beach. So it would be harder for me to try to do something next week because I'm actually preparing to leave. So
all right, why don't we do this then? Why don't we do, Mark, what was the date you said, July 7th?
July 7th would be just the date simply to do the one item agenda to handle the interdepartmental transfers.
Okay.
I can make that work.
Okay. So July 7th would be presumably a relatively straightforward meeting.
Yeah.
There's usually, hopefully not a whole lot of business that builds up between now and then. So the summer, traditionally, nothing traditional about where we find ourselves, traditionally has been quiet. So if we met and you're back on the 11th,
Yep.
after the 11th, for the week or so after that, do people have issues with their schedule?
None here. Marty, I have a procedural question. Is it possible to do a socially distanced in-person meeting versus Zoom?
Well, that was going to be something I was going to raise as well about more generally, and that's one of the reasons, Mark, I put the issue about meetings. If possible, I would be strongly in favor of trying to pull something like that off.
Find
Outdoors, I think you could.
And have it be public. It would be a public meeting to have enough space for people to attend.
But the details, it doesn't have to. I think trying to do it on July 7th maybe is a little bit aggressive. But maybe our August meeting again. The more we can do to move back towards normalcy, I think the better all around. So I agree with you, Mr. Stivers.
The 14th of July, aim for a socially distanced goal-setting meeting.
So I could do virtual that week, but not in person. Most likely I could do the following week in person.
21st.
Yep, I could do the week of the 21st in
Me too.
person as well.
Yep.
The 20th, yeah, 21st.
So let me jump in here. If we were looking at 2 dates, one in July and one in August, to simply handle the administrative business of the board, have our regular meeting, so to speak, and the July 7th date was simply to handle the transfers, then I would suggest that, we do July 21st and August 18th as those 2 dates. Now, if you wanted to attempt to meet, I can't remember who just said who's here, who's not, but you could attempt on the 21st if you wanted to do, do that socially distant outside. We could look to facilitate that. I can work with the chair to set that up and see what's possible. And, maybe we take the trucks out of Apparatus Bay, 1 and 2, and set up a socially distant meeting there. We can
Yeah.
open up the doors. We could take a look at, at a couple of different options.
Mark, did I mishear you? I thought you said you wanted us to meet on July 7th to
I
take care of
did.
housekeeping.
Simply for that one housekeeping item that we need to do before the end of the, as to
Okay.
close out the fiscal year. And we need to give advisory time to then take the same level of action on any reserve fund transfers and that before the 15th of July. But in terms of regular business meetings, similar to this meeting, to handle our regular business, it would be, I would look at July 21st and August 18th as the 2 dates to do that. That would be my suggestion.
And that's fine with me. Chelsea, you're available on the 14th. Just you wouldn't be available.
Remote.
You'd be available remotely.
Yes.
So, how do other people feel about the 14th?
Works for me, remote. Certainly.
Remote.
So maybe Mark, because I think there's an appetite for having the goal setting meeting as soon as possible. And one of the reasons I think that doing it sooner rather than later would make sense is because one of the things I want to talk about is some stuff that we started to do the last year, and then of course we ran headlong into the COVID change, but particularly with a potential fall meeting percolating, focusing among other things on the EDC's downtown initiative, pulling together, really taking the initiative that on this and pulling together the planning board and open space and other folks who are stakeholders in this process. And I think the earlier we have our planning meeting, and think about potentially doing that even in August sometime, if representatives of some of those boards are available. So maybe have the quick meeting you're talking about on the
14th, and then do the planning meeting on the 21st.
Yeah, and basically do the quick meeting with a regular meeting. In other words, just add that one additional agenda item on the 14th, have a regular meeting as well on the 14th, have a planning meeting on the 21st, and then pick a date for our August meeting.
So then you would be pushing the transfers to July 14th instead of the 7th.
Yep.
Which is really pushing it one day before we have to have it completed and done, which means advisory is going to have to do it first. Or we try to do a joint meeting on the 14th.
I just think I mean, we can obviously meet on the 7th, but if we could roll the that one item into a meeting on the 14th, I guess that'd be my preference. What do other people think?
I'm fine with a 30-minute meeting on the 7th if that helps the administrative process.
It better not take 30 minutes, but
yeah. See, that's the thing. It's going to be. I'm available on the 7th as well. I was just trying to kill 2 birds with one stone.
I'll limit my questions and comments.
No members' reports.
Yeah, no. It's up to you. You tell me what you want to do, and then we'll make it work. If you do want to do this on the 14th and you want to do the transfers, and then you want to get into well, wait a minute. Did you want to do the 14th or the transfers and then the goal setting, or no?
21st for the goal setting, I thought you said.
21st for goals. Okay.
The transfers and other normal business on the 14th.
Okay.
if you guys, I don't want to put you guys in a tough place, Mark, but if you think that that logistically that doesn't present you guys with real difficulty, that'd be my preference.
Well, my suggestion to you, Mr. Chairman, I see Ms. Cook is in the audience, and since you have the chair of advisory, I probably would see if she wants to come in and at least weigh in on whether you want to try and do a joint meeting, on the 14th, just to try to get that done by both boards in one night.
Sure. Kathy, you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Can you see me?
We cannot.
Nope.
Good. That's actually a good thing. I didn't expect to do this. We could do it either way. Advisory could meet the week of the 4th, 5th, 6th. Is the 6th is Monday. We can meet that week, I think. I got to be careful because advisory is down to 5 people. So we've got to have all 5 there. Chelsea is gone and John Rooney has resigned. So we're down to 5. So all 5 have to be there. So
You want us to change the size of your committee?
Yeah.
Well, actually, we do want to talk about that, just not tonight.
Moderator in gear. Round up.
for another meeting. But so it's pretty dangerous for me to assume anything as far as the schedule till I have polled everyone. But we can try either way. We can try to meet the Tuesday before, or we can try to do the joint meeting to do the transfers and then advisory do the reserve fund transfers.
All right. Well, why don't we leave it to you, whichever you want to do, and we'll plan to meet on the 14th. And if you guys are there as well, we can all say hello. If not, you can take care of business beforehand. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Okay, so I think that's all set now then. So July 14th will be your regular meeting for the month of July. We'll do the transfers at that meeting. July 21st will be goal setting. I'll work with the chair to put this into a socially distant, outdoor, COVID-friendly setting. And then August 18th would be our regular meeting for the month of August. And again, if there's special meetings that needed, we can add those in as needed.
Great.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
I'm seeing nods all around.
It does.
All right, Mr. Purple, you'll put together a schedule that reflects that?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. I don't have anything else. I have item number 9 on my agenda.
Motion
Mr.
to adjourn.
Stivers. Oh, Mr. Shea. All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Are you going to add stuff to the agenda?
No, I just wanted to point out, you ran over me again when you left out item B under update on impact of COVID-19, update on operations. This was specifically an item that was requested during the discussion of setting the agenda. I think
I think I requested that. See how much I can change my mind though. Yeah. No, why don't you give us all right, why don't we end up then with an update on where things stand in the town?
Sure. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mrs. Hale to start. Mr. Davis is not going to be obviously joining us this evening. He would like to come in July and talk about recreation. There's some big things he's working on. He's not quite ready, but I do have a brief update that I can give on his behalf about some of the things going on with recreation. But I'll turn it over to Vanessa first.
Thank you. So I think the 2 primary things are that per the governor's current regulations this week, we are allowed to go closer to 50% of our staffing, but always, maintaining social distancing and face masks, et cetera, in the workplace. So we're trying to bring back, more people as we can. So we're working through that. We are also looking at some part-time nursing help. Our brand new public health nurse, Emily Amico, is working pretty much triple the amount of hours she was hired for in the middle of COVID. So we're trying to get her some temporary help over the course of the summer. We're looking at, are there school nurses that can be helpful? Someone, potentially from a regional board of health. So those are the kinds of things we're working through the logistics of this week, actually. As the governor looks to move toward phase 3, Mark and I sit on a call every Tuesday afternoon with the lieutenant governor and her staff. They talked a lot about that today, actually, that, they're looking for 2 weeks of data in the second half of phase 2, which we're in now. So we're anticipating perhaps the week after July 4th that we might be in phase 3. And at that point, we certainly would hope to be back open to the public. We're doing business by appointment whenever someone needs it right now. So, that piece is going well. We meet folks outside, so they're not coming into the building. The other part of when we do reopen our buildings is contract tracing. So every department, every building will have a log of any visitors to the building in case someone is unfortunately diagnosed with a positive case. So it's a lot of logistics going on right now, but as I said, hopefully by mid-July at the latest, we'll fingers crossed, be open to the public. Part of phase 3 means also larger gatherings, which we expect to hear more from the governor in the next 10 days or so. So that definitely relates to the library, to recreation, not so much the senior center. They're going to focus during one of these conversations on senior center operations within the next few weeks, but we expect that will be the very last. In fact, Mark and I chatted about the senior center today. Even when the employees are all back to full staff, the building needs to be open to the public. It shouldn't be closed, but there will be strict barriers. So no one is going into the pool room or the kitchen just to maintain the cleanliness of the building as much as possible. I also wanted to mention that curbside pickup at the library started last week. That's gone extremely well. I believe Ryan is filling 50 to 60 reserve orders a day. So that's gone really, really well. So we're very happy that the public can at least, get things from the library or return items to keep them busy. The summer reading is going on, even though there is nobody in the library building. They have all kinds of activities that are available for pickup as well in their curbside delivery for summer reading. So we just wanted to give a plug for that too. I think that covers it for now, unless you have anything else, Mark.
Yeah, no, just a couple of things. I will say with the library, if you do drive by at the right time and look at the table they've got set up in the parking lot, it looks like a bunch of bag lunches, with all these little individual bags on the table. So they are doing a brisk business. I also do want to give kudos to John Parent and his staff that, with all the work they've done to prepare the buildings to have the employees coming back in. As Vanessa said, we're ramping up our staff. We are allowing people to stagger schedules so that we don't have too many people in one office at any given time without proper separation. The good news is we don't have big staffs in most of these offices, so it's not that hard. But it does make sense for some people to still remain remote. And, we are doing that. But again, kudos to John and his staff for getting things prepared. It's going to be a nice transition when the public is allowed to come back in. With regards to recreation, you may have seen when you went down to town meeting, the work that's happening in DePetrie Field. It's in its final stages. The irrigation is being connected. They've hit a bit of a snag in trying to find the water line to connect into. And hopefully that is all going to be resolved by the end of this week. They're putting in the heads, then they'll be putting in the rest of the material on the field and laying the sod. This is all supposed to be done and wrapped up by July 3rd. It's a little bit exciting just to see that all set. I really appreciate the school making accommodations because it's been a little difficult to get into Neary. They have to come around, they can't come in from Parkerville. It's been a little bit of an inconvenience, but I think the finished product will match that. For Mooney and Neary Lights, Rec Department is in form planning. They're going to be submitting the package for those projects on the July submittal date. It's tentatively placed on the August 10th public hearing for planning. And once it's approved, it's going to be about 11 or 12 weeks for procurement, product manufacturing, and installation. In a perfect world, if everything goes right and COVID cooperates, we could be looking at having some fall ball under the lights at those locations. So, fingers crossed. Playgrounds are now open. They've got proper signage, encouraging face coverings, social distancing, hygiene. DPW has been helping out by trying to power wash them as often as possible to keep them clean. The only playground that is still closed is the rec center, the art center, due to new surfacing being installed. That should be done by the end of the week. And then that playground will be open as well. There was a lot of discussion at the last meeting about youth baseball. Youth Southborough Little League is in season officially starting this past Monday on June 15th. During this phase, they're operating at a skills and drills level, and they've got about 109 players registered for the summer season, which is really good. They've worked very well with rec to try to meet all the requirements that they need to do in order to come back. And hopefully full practices, scrimmages, games begin in phase 3. Right now, as Vanessa had noted, we're looking at July 6th for phase 3. And if everything continues to trend in that direction, hopefully they'll be getting back to games at that date. I just do want to note as a final thing that there has been great coordination between Fay and St. Mark's and the rec department to make sure that when they're working on what's closed and what's open, they're trying to make uniform decisions so that it doesn't look like, well, Fay's got teams out on the fields and they're doing this, but we can only scrimmage at this point, or skills and drills. And so they're trying to make sure that it's all done very coordinated. And so I appreciate the collaboration that Fay and St. Mark's has had with Recreation on that. So as I said, Tim Davis will be at your next meeting, can give you a little more updates on outdoor movies, concerts, summer nights, and there's some camp and general rec programming that they're working on putting the finishing pieces together that he'd really like to talk about, positive stuff instead of closings and things you can't do. Let's talk about the things we can do.
All right. Well, Mr. Purple, thank you for catching that. The me who wanted to put it on the agenda was right. The me who skipped over it was wrong.
That's
So
okay.
that's terrific information for us, and more importantly for everybody in Southborough to know. And I've been impressed with the way you and the recreation department and all the folks in town government have handled this whole thing. So kudos across the board.
Thank you.
Agreed.
All right.
Motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Shea has made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Mr. Shea's disappearing. Second.
Yeah.
All right. Discussion very quickly is, again, I just want to thank folks just off of tonight. I think there's terrific energy on the board, and I'm looking forward to a terrific year for us and for the town. So with that as my only discussion, Ms. Braccio.
Aye.
Mrs. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy is aye. We are adjourned. See folks in a few weeks.
Good night.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.